closing event for the Brooklyn Rails Singing in Unison Part 4 here at Ricco Maresca Gallery. I'm so incredibly thrilled to be here with you all today for a reading and tribute to Etel Adnan, featuring the poets Charles Bernstein, Nora Treatbaby, and Waldman. We're going to get started in just a minute, but before we do, I'd like to welcome the Rails Artistic Director Phong for opening remarks.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Just the other day, I was reading somewhere that Heinrich Himmler says something very disturbing. So disturbing. He said the most powerful weapon is the weapon of terror. Cruelty demands respect. Men may not like us, but we don't ask for their love, only for their fear. So, you know, I came from Vietnam, growing up during that terrible time between 54 to 75. My family was persecuted. We were sent to labor camp, so I'm very politically heightened about everything. What I realize is it's not that dissimilar to Mao Zedong. During the Cultural Revolution, he says something similar. He said, what's the big deal about the Emperor Xin Huang, who only killed 460 scholars alive, buried them alive. We buried 460,000 of them. Same thing with Stalin. During the Great Purge, the Great Terror, between 34 to 36, eliminated, murdered nearly 750,000, actually more than 750,000, in counting of his political intellectual adversaries. It's no joke. I just felt when Kellyanne Conway created that term, alternative facts. And when Trump appeared on television on Monday, March 16, 2020, and deployed that term that we all detest so much, social distancing. We are in trouble. We are in trouble when he said that, because I realized what he wanted to do, just like any tyrants, autocrats before him, they're very good with technology. They're very good with mobilizing speed through technology. No more, no less than, let's say, Benito Mussolini. Benito is not an Italian name. That was given to him by his socialist parents, who admirers were Benito Juarez. Just because when he failed to convey Italy to enter the First War, they kicked him out. He grew serious embitterment, and guess whom he met when he entered the army? Filippo Monaretti, the founder of futurism. And what is futurism? Speed, technology, and violence. So there are strings of things. I can just sit here, standing here, tell you all of it. But that's not the point. The point, we have to respond agile, urgently, quickly. So when he appeared on television on that day, 2:30, Monday, March 16, 2020, we had a meeting at the Rail over dinner, and we created a Zoom next day. It's called New Social Environment Lunchtime Conversation. Up till last Friday, we have already done 644 episodes, and it's booked until the end of the year. We are going to do whatever we can do to counter the speed of these people by amplifying our slowness of culture, because it takes time to write a poem. It takes time to make a painting. It takes time to make a sculpture. There's no sculpture here. It takes time to do anything. And that's our arsenal, that's our counter in response against their usage of speed. And what else is very important, speed also implies the kind of destruction of reduction of language. That's what he's good at. Very seriously haiku in his manipulative way, to reduce language to 2-3 words, to destroy language. And our job is, thank God, for our poets friends, to whom words are equal weapons against that speed. It slows everything down, it enriches everything that is subtle about our language, it retrieves the dignity of language. So in thinking about Etel Adnan, who we admire so much, her great, well, everything she's done is so amazing, but just because I was reading Surge, that last book that was published by Nightboat 2018, I don't want to misquote her, but she says something what is so beautiful. She says from the beginning, thoughts are metallic and it melts in salt water. Their frequency increases the melancholy, the pervading melancholy. Meaning is ephemeral. Then it ends with this line, reality is messianic, apocalyptic. My soul is my terror. Which means, not your terror that terrorizes me. You cannot terrorize me without my permission. So that's basically my haiku introduction. I'm super happy that you're here. And now I'm turning over the poetry curator of the rail, Tyhe Cooper.
Thank you so much, Phong, and thank you all once again for coming. As Phong said, and I'm not sure if I said at the beginning, I'm Tyhe. I'm the Rail's editorial assistant and one of the poetry curators. I kept using the word overwhelmed too much when I was writing what I was going to say today, and I was reading it to my roommates, and they said that I had said the word overwhelmed like 5 times. So I'm now done saying the word overwhelmed, except for once more after this. But I'm truly so excited to be here with you all today, and to have Charles and Nora and AM reading. This is a moment in which I feel really incapable of fitting all of the care that's rocketing around my body into my own words. So I'm going to cheat a little bit and use some of Etel's. I want to welcome you all and set the stage for these incredible readings that we're about to hear by reading a little bit from Shifting the Silence, which is one of Etel's last books, which came out also from Nightboat. And I first read Shifting the Silence at a moment in my life when I was feeling very unmoored, and like I needed a little bit of anchoring. And I am continuously struck by how full of hope and devastation and honesty this book is. So I just want to welcome you all with a few of Etel's words and then hand it over to our readers. We are witnessing the last days of this civilization as we know it. Through the glass panels of the apartment, I observe the ocean. Then something stirs. Things appear, we say, transcending themselves. You call it being, you call it this wave. It could be people, too. I didn't sleep last night. Right now, the ocean is a flat metallic sheet running from east to west. The reverberation hurts my eyes, but I am happy. Days go by, but bring surprises. Friends come and their messengers. Birds of good omen. They lift the sky, and we need it. I do my best to walk by this edge of the town, by the tide, one step at a time. 1 hour goes by after another, then the sun launches new rays. And now, to really get us started, I am so thrilled to welcome Charles Bernstein. Charles Bernstein is the winner of the 2019 Bollingen Prize for Near Miss and for Lifetime Achievement in American Poetry. He is the author of Topsy-Turvy and Pitch of Poetry, and please take it away, Charles.
Great to be here, and with one of the many fantastic shows curated by the Rail and and Phong and Cal, and to honor Etel Adnan, Phong called me some months ago and said, I want you to do an interview with Etel for the video program at 1 o'clock. And I said, well, okay, I mean, I'd love to try to do that, but I don't think we should do that live. You know, everything live. I said, let me just tape it in advance. So I think it was one of the first ones that we pre-recorded. But it's just an incredible, you know, I'd ask her, like, I could ask her any question. What do you think of the color? She goes on at some length, kind of poetically and philosophically. They transcribed, and also you can listen to it. So I strongly recommend that. And of course, then the great show at the Guggenheim. It's interesting that Etel Adnan art at the Guggenheim Museum for Visual Art, as well as Cecilia Bacuna in the same series. Remarkable because these are people who, from my point of view, are primarily known to me as poets over the last 30, 40 years. And also striking how the contribution that they make to poetry is as elided as it possibly can be, given their important contribution when those shows are written about. Not because of Etel or Cecilia, by the way, just the way, you know, the fact that poetry doesn't really exist. So the rail, it's the opposite. Anything that rail is I worry about the rail focusing too much on poetry. It'll pull the whole thing down. But it's great for those of us who do it. But, I'm just going to read one short poem that I wrote for something related to an earlier show that Phong did. So Phong did in 2015 a show called Intimacy in Discourse, Reasonable Sized Paintings at Mana Contemporary, Jersey City. Now, I'm going to move around, so you know. It was in Jersey City, and I wrote 3 poems for that show and read them there. And one was for Bill Jensen, who has this work that's not like that, and there's another Bill Jensen over there. And another was for Rackstraw Downs. That's the longest and crazy one. And the third was for this painting by Etel that they beautifully reproduced. Now, we weren't sure that you were going to be able to see it, so we put it online, tiny.cc/ETEL. So if you want to type that into your mobile device, but I think this is actually pretty good for the styrofoam piece. I like the idea that I'm taking like advanced work and I'm like, that's the idea. It actually moves around if you keep looking at it. Tiny.cc/ETEL. I see none of you are taking out your mobile devices because there's no reason to, so you can see it. Interestingly, that book, Near Miss, where those 3 poems were in, was the book that got that Bollingen prize. So I really have to thank Phong and the Rail for partly making that possible. And we did color reproductions. So here it is. It's called Flag. Don't worry about dividing, hiding, diving. No representation without limitation, imitation, rotation, notation. A fly on the wall imbues tricolor tears, blue square where stars would be. Or is it rips across a lawn like all get out, got out? I spill across the open field in warped allegiance to my fears. I drip and drop and squint and squat. Together make a banner's knot. Don't crowd me, says pink to yellow and green. I'm much too blue. Stripes are never even in a republic of repair. And yellow will take you just so far before the beige unwends its wear. Under every coat, another coat lurks mean, cast about on grifts of form, looking for a truth to clean. Truth is never far away. It's just right there, across the sway. But never shall you find. The only rest is for the 3 and each of those made up of two, except the margin takes it back like bounce makes line and thuds make ache, stairs where hearts would be. It's just a blank, an empty space, as flat as the top of my mother's hat. I pledge adhesion to the wag who cut my head and took my swag. Come together in coming apart, in common strife we'll live alike, next to neighbor, separate as, overlapping tones in which to hear our own, yet go to bed alone. Next to this, next to that, as supple as a furtive nap, the signal ends its banished sigh. Attention flag conspires to moan, or is it mourn, or is it torn? Organize, or be the product of another's notation, imitation, filtration. Who swears where bars would be?
Thank you so much, Charles. Not to be too on the nose, but the whole coming together and coming apart feels incredibly apt to these shows that we've been
Singing in unison.
incapable of stopping. They just keep coming, and I'm really glad that we could hear that work today, and thank you for performing it so lively, and my tape held up. It did all right.
Who owns that painting?
Phong may know. Do you know where this original of this painting is?
Gallery belong.
Okay, yeah, there we go. This is Gallery Belongs. It's just on phone court, but just for fun. Our next reader is Nora Treatbaby. Nora Treatbaby is based in New York. Her chapbook, Hope is Weird, is available from Other Weapons Distro, and her first full-length collection of poetry, Our Air, is forthcoming from Nightboat Books.
Hi, thanks for coming, everybody. It's an honor to honor Etel. I'm going to read some excerpted stanzas from this poem, The Indian Never Had a Horse. A very brief response, and then some of a poem that definitely comes from, or has a lot of the things I find valuable in Etel's work. Yeah. The certitude of space is brought to me by a flight of birds. It is gray outside and there is a trembling. Fog is too heavy a word. A bee fell in love with a peach blossom. Sweat runs over my body, the riverbeds are dry. We forgot to brush the Indian's teeth before the final slaughter. How perfect the afternoon. There are no boats on the river, and the world's beauty is blinding. 3 astronauts are on their way back. In the garden, a single leaf is shaking. You are sitting by windows overlooking the East River. Generations flow down the avenues, and you are counting the stairways that lead to hell. One day, even the stars became soldiers. Isis wept over the empty sky. Because you wanted a better world, your bed sheets are locked in a closet. We shall disappear, my love, like salmon and trout. Would it be that distances are the substance of my feet? I looked through a peephole, never saw a body but valleys and hills. Earth is the mother of us all. Galaxies work as narcotics. You didn't know how dangerous it was to go to Mexico. You make people run for shelter. You carry within an angel that overflows. Let me look at you while your limbs carry grace, the wind takes you into the future. Everything will be clean because you will have left for the farthermost planets. I have a love affair with Albuquerque because of the Indian dancers and the Arab builders. I own the sky. Fabulously gray are the trucks that crisscross this continent, how dry, wells in Indiana, and dull, sunflowers, and sad southern dogs. I sit motionless like a forgotten mirror. There were so many sunrises over the field that we thought eternal is the world. Oh rain, oh sunshine, wait a little. I am plunging into tomorrow, jumping off this day and this hour. The sun has rays, laser beams, arrows, and a daughter confined to her orange garden. I told you, do not cut the roses. I told you the mountain is turning its back, and I am desperate. I would like to tell you two things: that I am going to die and that you are going to drive a car, that I will live forever and that you will plant roses on the terraces of Damascus. I saw a piece of heaven break apart. There is no use telling why. Do not speak to me of angels unless you want to lie by their side on the surface of Emerald Lake and live forever with your eyes open. My own angels take many forms. Today they are trees. Etel uses simplicity as a disguise. In Sid Marie Rose, the titular character tells us love is a supreme violence. Considering the disparity in the way we have filled the words that begin and end that statement, love and violence, it would seem nearly impossible to reconcile them as equals. And yet the terms we have for this world all share that, this world. They are layered in each other. Etel writes knowing that what we already have in language is everything we need. The terms of the world: earth, love, sky, death, why, and trees. Monosyllabic categories in which we have extrapolated far beyond species, philosophies, and histories. To seek the truth of one of those words, it is not necessary to expound past what it already does. Etel does not. She shows where love and where violence appear, this world. She teaches us that to resolve terms, we must say things absolutely simply. When Etel writes, I saw a piece of heaven break apart, there is no use telling why. It is clear to me that each word vibrates with absolute necessity. Each word is a messenger. There is no room in the world in these sentences for any other arrangement. The clarity that comes to me is illuminated by exactly what is not said. Heaven exists. Violence is a part of that. We are witnesses to everything at once. That this is obvious comes to us only in the rarity of their sentiment. To leave something unexplained produces a depth of understanding immeasurable. In some ways, I believe this is our only hope with language. The prosody of a simple sentence lets us into endlessness. The sentence, there is no use telling why, is endless. Each word is layering. I can feel them speaking as one. There was a lake. I went deep. I recorded that, you saying it. It was in the choreography of two swimmers, their lines unfolded space. We were in a bowl of sound. We could see their motions slowly, which was unhurried, birds and laughter. They made each other equal. Their breathing was weird. It had a rhythm, like breathing. In what ways do things come through to us? Their lines, which were not parallel, were communicating, in some respect, circling, near to the heart of edges, and yet they were making none. I ask because it is not clear to me the term, whether by love or by tear or by surrender, in which we walk through the gates of recognition. They were two different kinds of vastness. I could hear birds. The song was delicate, like people, laughing in the same presence. Water was echoing and air mirrored. It occurred to me, there was a lake. In the choreography of two swimmers, you asked if they were in relation. I asked, no matter how, they are. Each makes the other look out of place. They were unfolding area, lovingly. Their collision, which did not occur, it meant a lot to me. Because they were perfect, it made it easy to say these things to you. Why does pain hurt? I cannot lie, and I cannot tell the truth. Such would require of me to know the terms of things, essentially. Beyond words, there were more of them. They evoke each other, as if at times in love. They need each other, like colors. We were in a bowl of sound. I could hear your face and the trees laughing. Their bodies articulated trajectories which was timed softly. You communicated the terms of our situation by being surrounded. I know there was a lake. In an environment like that, there is sky. Under this one, two swimmers. It was their lines that unfolded the whole body, which is a ripple. They made each other equal. I don't know why. The world situation, it was difference. I entered it. The feeling of myself was interesting. You saw lines where there were some. Inventing a choreography between terms that allowed for the summary of our day. It was their lines which were not paths, which were not dots in motion, that I cannot describe everything that occurred since they never collided. Never before had anything quite happened. I cannot describe everything about their devotion to one another. The swimmers greeted each other by changing water. In the way you looked, I saw things. I was able to consider another situation that was adjacent in certain terms. Their lines were becoming, in different terms, the world. I could not hear anything, which was not exactly silence. In the choreography of two swimmers, there were lines which did not vibrate, but were recognizable. Land had lines. Each made the other look out of place, even though it was changing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nora. I was thinking, the like every word being an absolute necessity thing is, I've been trying all week to sum up feelings about Etel, and since I decided to start like running this event, I was thinking about who I could invite, and Nora said something about how Etel was able to be traced in her poem that she read, and I was thinking about I could invite anyone for this reading and they would be reading in honor of Etel, because all of our work is about Etel, and it just goes on forever. So thank you so much, Nora. And now our next and last reader of the night is Waldman. Poet, curator, professor, performer, cultural activist Anne Waldman co-founded the Jack Kerouac School of Disembodied Poetics program at Maresca Institute. She was arrested at Rocky Flats with Daniel Ellsberg and Allen Ginsberg in the 1970s, reading poems that challenged deliveries of plutonium from nuclear warheads. Author of over 60 volumes of poetry, poetics, and anthologies, including the Iovis trilogy, Colors and the Mechanism of Concealment, which won the Penn Center Literary Prize. Penguin has published her books over many years, including Trickster Feminism, among several others. Her album, Sayamaki, was released in 2020 by Fast Beat Music and the Maresca Gallery. New Weathers, Poetics from the Noropa Archive, Nightboat 2022 has just gone to press. Please, Anne.
Thank you, Phong, and thank you for those words that you opened this with. It's so important. We must never forget how urgent the times are. One of Etel's wonderful things that we quote is, poetry is urgency. the bulk of that. And I wanted to say a few words about the kind of love affairs with the other generation, the consociational sense of how generations work together, seeking out elders. I mean, sometimes I felt, something from Etel was that she was the matching half. She was some matching half of myself. Went to her for a kind of wisdom and life, incredible life. And I embraced her as a poet working in America. She lived for many years, very connected to the Bollingen community that some of you might know about in Bollingen, California, very close to the poet, a dear friend of mine, Joanne Kiger. And we hear about Etel a lot. I finally got out to Sausalito, spent time with her there. She came to readings I would do in San Francisco at the CCA, which was then the California College of the Arts, and I was with a younger friend, an artist, who was showing something. She was a student at the school, this beautiful silver helmet, and I called it the Minerva helmet. And Etel immediately went to that piece and started raving about it, and to this younger artist. So just seeing her in that way, constantly informing, all this secret and not so secret transmission. And then, there were times when I'd see her in Paris, and she was almost like a Buddhist monk or nun. There's something just very rounded about her. And you say about someone, they are comfortable anywhere. I mean, that's the secret of enlightenment. You are comfortable anywhere in the world, in any kind of extreme situation, any kind of, glamorous, easy situation, but you're not attached in that way. And I'd see her, just be having a beer at a restaurant. Just very ordinary, sort of ordinary magic, but also with this care for perception, really. For perception and noticing things and being so empathetic. And that she lived as long as she did was, it's so incredible for us. And to see her take the world stage, really, with her, particularly her art. It was, I think of Stevie Motika and Nightboat and the work they've done for her poetry as well. And so that, what Phong was speaking of, and that kind of pleasure, just seeing, for example, Cecilia as well, just coming to a point where you feel the work has this life and vitality, and the world can actually help people and make it more, amazing and beautiful and important, the consciousness of that. So to remember that always. And I was just going to read a couple of things. A work of hers called The Arab Apocalypse has been one of the most vital, texts in my life. I've taught it, I've written about it, I've performed it. I'd love to do a kind of, I don't know what to call it, an oratorio, where a number of poets would work with that text in various ways. I find it so relevant to the times we're still in, the ongoing Palestinian crisis. When I'd see her, and with Simone as well, there'd be conversations about Syria. There was always something going on to think about, address, actually visualize, and open one's heart to. So just a few lines from this Arab Apocalypse, where I'm, sort of talking about it. And this is from a piece called Sunken Suns and the Tiger for Etel Adnan. The Middle East lives its destiny. No sound seems trivial or ordinary. This is Etel. The power of terror is totalitarian. Bullets crack and resonate in the amphitheater that is Beirut. And then another quote here. My body is a rag to be sewn to the earth. Oh, you who sews worlds, sew me. So thinking of Etel in that, and that's Al-Mahari. So, performing the Arab Apocalypse, I was in a room in Marrakesh. I experienced this text magnitude display, yearning, urgent alarm, its measure of riot and desperation and power. The poem, in its integrated sections, shoots off the page, disrupts conditioned space, explodes in the ears, and beats the inner drums. It unleashes a linguistic slash and breach and upheaval. And you can see that in the text. I'm sure some of you know that text. It's interrupted by her jottings, her marks on it. It becomes a very vital performance, visually as well. I supplicated, I made gestures, arms flagellating, hands jabbing the air. I improvised finger mudras and worked taut, fierce expressions upon my face. I let my mouth expand to hold the whole of ancient Arabia. Then I revised the map and considered all turmoil continuing now ever, problem not solving. Israel and Palestine, and I included Somalia, Libya, Tunisia, Syria again, and I knocked my head with my fist. I looked up to pray again and bowed and prostrated on the ground of the poem. My eye mudras moved in all directions of space, attempting to indicate, no, manifest, to enact Etel Adnan's prophetic poetry glyphs. Then I put my whole body into the codes and lingual sounds of this animated and visual text, her apocalypse. May people of the future decipher these runes. I lay down for the arrow-like glyph between Mexico and bed undone. I mean, she had these incredible, clusters of words from Mexico and bed undone. I splayed myself on the floor before great Inca. I stamped on the floor before Ishi cried this morning after I painted the sun in the middle of the sky like a flag. I danced and swirled and repeatedly pointed to the window and beyond. I held my belly, clutching it 3 times before singing out, the yellow sun of menopause. I stuttered and crawled after intoning, in the underground black room, always black as experience, and I groaned. There had been pounds and pounds of decomposed flesh, tons of suffering, and let blood symbolically gushed from a wounded, long gone body and moaned. I took the text ideograms as clues for performance and chanted, hoo, and doom, 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 doom. An enactment of the battleground, measuring my own echolocation, an enactment of the psyche, measuring relief, the purge, the terror, this ritual mirrored. I spooked myself. Who can say it? Who says it? What are the words to call out and carry and include this apocalypse? This is the closest Etel's text I've come to. And then I noted, and these are some of her lines, a blue sun receding, a Kurd killing an Armenian killing a Palestinian. I noted what a purple and violent abyss broke loose on the primordial land of Syria. I noted trees and floats down the smooth surface of the Euphrates like a woman. I noted when they eat the Palestinian's liver before he's even dead. I noted Imam Ali dances over nuclear blast. I noted we crucify Gilgamesh on a tank. Viking 2 reaches Mars. I noted in under the blue clouds of Babylon, turtle doves announce of thunder. And I noted there have been meadows covered with human skin under the Arabian moon. I considered all the colors of Etel Adnan's suns, her voyelles, the red dots that are sunspots in the stuttering amplitudes of the poem, or a floral sun with petals of gold. I noted her Mao and her Rambo, the razor's edge. I conjured my own physical, spiritual displacement. I recalled sleeping on the desert near Abu Simbel, sickle moon, and my young girl, Coven, 1962. I felt the sun's heat in the morning. I recalled the airport in Beirut, machine guns everywhere, the fear in people's eyes, and so on. It goes on a little about the root of the Arab word nasheed, song, is the voice, the raising of the voice, and the recited poem itself. According to Adonis, in a great book, An Introduction to Arab Poetics, the Arabs of the pre-Islamic period felt the recitation of poetry a talent in itself, distinct from that of composition. Quote, listening was essential to the comprehension of words and to musical ecstasy, tarab. Another quote, the actual performance of poetry had its own rules in the pre-Islamic period, which survived into later ages. Some poets, for example, recited standing up, while others proudly refused to recite unless they were seated. Some would gesture using their hands or their whole bodies, like the poetess Alcanza, 6th, 7th century, who it is said rocked and swayed and looked down at herself in trance. I wanted that trance, wanted Cassandra invoked here in a poem of wailing, and the explication of the harm out under a cruel desert sun, for the desert will consign all to dust and sand more quickly perhaps than we can imagine. So I'll leave that there, but the letter here is from Etel, and came at a very kind of important time. I was trying to finish this long epic poem, the Yoga's Trilogy, and having trouble just ending it. It still isn't really ended, but this letter helped. And I also, it's so wonderful to have the meditation on this flag. And I'm familiar with a lot of the Tamil pious paintings, you must know, and Mount Tam is very important to the Bollingen community and and the Zen community out there. There's particular walks that you do, meditations around Tam. Maybe some of you have done those kinds of things. And then my own, reference to the Flatirons in Boulder, Colorado, where I spend time when I'm working at Europa and try to go and retreat out there, but these jagged flat irons. So I'm not a painter, but I've used the images and the experience of being in them for some writing. And so her letter sort of took me, although she's in Beirut and in a very different situation, just thinking about looking at these images of the paintings and my own jagged flat irons, went out and took a walk and had a great encounter with a snake and the crux of a tree, and not that it was Etel speaking, it could have been. But she was telling people towards the end of her life how important it was to go back to the arcade, to really, she loved Greece. Greece was very important, I think, to her whole, sense of performance and dance, and where things originated from. And so it was basically don't give up on any place, and try to really hold it in your own as an artist and thinker and so on. I want to say it's also great to be in this gallery. There's so many good works here. I've been away, so I missed the other shows. It's an honor to be in front of Bill Jensen's work. He's a dear friend, and I admire his work so much. So this is very invigorating. Thank you. Okay, this is Etel's letter. Dear Anne, this is Etel. We are in Beirut, a sauna, a city with high-rises and the old, narrow streets, a suffocation being built, so many dingy nightclubs, cafes, eateries, and so on. Very vibrant, though, full of brilliant young people spending time asking questions such as, do I stay, do I leave? And in fact, living on airplanes and the mountains, very close, still livable, and luxury hotels. Gulf Arabs buying 10,000 square feet apartments that they leave empty most of the time. The 1,001 nights with iPods, poor and trapped prostitutes, political flimsy schemes, and for them still real fun. So many young talents, mostly in video, short films, and so on. The laboratory for things to come. Maybe the closest thing to America, incredibly, is Beirut. It should collapse, but it doesn't. Let's hope that there is, in fact, some hope. I'm gonna cry. Believe me, the thing that means most, really most, is love. Passion, love, or friendship. The getting together of a few people a few times for a few hours. And it does make a living a wonderful thing. Last night, we were by the sea in a dingy garden cafe, the only one left of its sort, with some 10 people from very young to me in age, actors, artists, and so on, and some newly met. And it was so beautiful to see everyone doing his, her best to make some art, some money, some theater, and trying to matter in this huge, blind world. I really deeply wish you were with us. You would have immediately integrated, understood, happy. That's one more reason why I miss you. Stay in touch. Love, Etel. And then this little bit of writing came after this, just a little coda. And I hear you there, and I saw through time, there, with Etel as I morphed further, slithering into runnels of the snake tributaries of the snake realm, bardo of many encounters. I would tell you, as my thoughts took off, I would tell you of what? I would see a thought of aid to give, of love or empathy to give reflected in the quick dart or hiss of you, and of the snake underfoot in the flat irons. I was walking a lot then to find my tread, and find my tread as some sorrow whipped in cycles under my feet. And the earth turned in cycles under my feet, and I climbed the hill out by Devil's Thumb, flat irons. It was dust, a slight shift in the air, autumn coming on, her sweet, sweet rattle in the crux of a tree and moving like a dance, the fangs flicking out toward me. Gaze of the snake fills the eye. I sang to her to quell her, she, the snake of my time, Lokapala of this place. I sang Om Tara Tuta Dore Soha, Om Tara Tuta Tare Soha, to calm her, that I might pass by, that I might continue to climb, to climb. Oh, you most beautiful of rattlers, gone, way beyond, gone, gone, gone beyond, gone, a poetry of sorrows. Thank you.
I made a lot of promises about not crying. I'm working on them. Thank you so much. And once in an interview in the Poetry Project, you said the phrase infrastructure poet. And I've been doing a lot of talking about why it is that as poets become more prolific, very inverse to many other fields, they become more embedded in their communities rather than you don't succeed through and exist outside of, you succeed into. And it's my favorite thing about poetry, among many others. And today is a day when I feel very surrounded and very, very grateful. So thank you, Anne, thank you, Charles, and thank you, Nora, and thank you all, and above all, thank you, Etel. So that's it.